said a bunch of stuff. We had a full conversation about me breaking up my ex-girlfriend. Me breaking up my girlfriend.
Make a couple of changes. Once we get everybody lined up, we'll make a few changes. You got embroidery and patches. Yeah, if you got a plain, if you have a plain jacket, just slide y'all back. You should have combed your hair before. Get down off the ticket tape, bro. Derek. Sunglasses, no hat. So here we go.
Mic check, 1, 2, 3, mic check, 1, 2, 3.
I promise I ain't doing it on purpose. Good to see you. I know this is the first time we've ever gotten one of these states at all.
still can get you from Colorado. I just got video. Yeah, right here. Good thing it's not hot. Your mustache is sweating. The thing is, Mike's is still good.
Yes, good morning. It's great to be here, and I want to thank Jimmy Petronas for being here with us, who's our CFO for the state, but also State Fire Marshal. We have our Division of Emergency Management Director, Kevin Guthrie, who's here, and then with Jacksonville Fire and Rescue, we have Chief Todd Smith as well as Chief Keith Powers, and so I want to thank them. And then behind me, we've got the great members of Task Force 5 for Urban Search and Rescue that are based right here in Northeast Florida. And so it's an honor to be here with them, particularly for the great announcement that we have today. As many of you know, we have officially entered hurricane season, and this is something that's very significant in the state of Florida. Obviously, we've got a lot of great assets all around the state, and it's something that the state government puts a lot of emphasis on, as well as our local communities. We are still in the midst of the disaster preparedness tax holiday, so you have a few more days on that. So if you do need to get supplies, now is the time to do that. And that's something that we're happy to have supported. We also did a big tax package where you can do the windows and all that. Now that's tax-free for 2 years. A lot of those improvements, which we think a lot of Floridians will like. But you do have situations where we have need for disaster response. And we saw it most recently last year with the collapse of the tower in Surfside, Florida. Just all of a sudden, kind of in the middle of the night, it was a terrible thing. You had another tower that had to be evacuated, and then you had these folks looking to try to rescue people on a really, really difficult set of circumstances. I mean, there were fires raging. There was all kinds of things when you get down there. And so we had our South Florida USAR teams down, but eventually we had, I think everyone in the state was down there, and it was something that they worked awfully hard at. But when you have these situations, you know, these are some of the guys that we want there doing this really, really important work. So we decided with our budget this year, you know, we want to make an impact at the state level to help these USAR teams, because it's very important. A lot of these teams really came into being in a big way with the federal funding, but that has really gone by the wayside over the years. And so we wanted to say, what could we do for the state level, from a state perspective, to really show our support. So today, you know, we're able to say that, you know, we signed the budget last week, and included in that budget is more than the state of Florida has ever provided for urban search and rescue. We're doing an extra $10 million for Florida's urban search and rescue teams. Part of this was you have equipment that needs to be updated, you have maintenance costs, you have different things about servicing vehicles, and then you have training and the things that go into that. So these teams provide great assistance when you have major events. They also aid in infrastructure restoration. They can work with emergency road clearance teams and utility crews to pave a path for communities to make repairs, particularly when you have these life-saving actions that depend on that. And that's the thing. When you have an event, particularly like a hurricane, you obviously want to get people to physical safety, but then afterwards, you got to get the power back on. You got to do a lot of those things. And we have some utility companies that have a lot of capacity. We have some others, maybe municipal, may not have quite as many. And so these teams are involved in really the whole gamut for that. So I just want to say to all the search and rescue teams in Florida, thanks for what you've done. We've obviously thanked them in the past for Surfside, but we want to thank it again. It was a really difficult time for the state, and I think those folks being on the front lines made a big difference. Now, I'm also pleased to announce that in the budget this year, just for the July 1st start of the fiscal year, we're going to be able for the second year in a row to deliver $1,000 bonuses for every firefighter in the state of Florida. So we're happy about that. So this is a big investment, but I think it's an investment that is absolutely worth it. And I think it's well deserved with the folks who have done so much to protect our communities. And so we are, as I mentioned, in hurricane season. They predict a more active season. But, you know, I always say, like, honestly, these predictions, you don't know either way. Just assume we're going to have hurricane. I mean, I think that's the best way to do it. Be prepared. And if we end up not getting a significant amount, then great. But just assume that you're going to have to deal with this throughout the hurricane season. And so we did see really significant rains. It was not a named tropical storm as it moved through southern Florida, but it did dump a lot of rain. It eventually was a named storm as it got into the Atlantic, and then that's just going to peter out without probably interacting with much landfall from there. But the bottom line is that this is something that we need to do. And I mentioned, up until June 10th, you can still get your disaster preparedness, your supplies, tax-free in the state of Florida. So take advantage of that. I mean, you see situations where all of a sudden a hurricane will be bearing down on Florida. Everyone's rushing to get the supplies. Well, it's just harder to do when everybody's doing it. Now you have an opportunity, even with all the supply chain problems, you can get a lot of the things you need now. Have it there, and if you need it, great, and if you don't, then no harm done. So that's going till June 10th, and I think that's going to be something. Not only do we have things like we've had in the past, like generators and portable radios and food storage, this year we have added pet supplies into the disaster preparedness, because when you think about it, when you have these things come, a lot of people have to scurry not only protect their family, but to protect their pets. And so you're going to be able to do that to make sure that your pets are safe. So we're excited about the opportunities that we're going to have with these guys here. You never want to have to deal with these disasters, but as a state that is prone to this, we take pride in the professionalism of the folks who are involved all across the way as first responders. You know, our state emergency division, I think, is the best in the country, but you have at the local level, a lot of these folks at the county level, cities, you have phenomenal people, and really the disaster response is really a bottom-up thing. So they're leading on the ground. We're providing support and management at the state level, and then sometimes we do have to rely on the federal government to help as well. It was a little bit easier for me my first 2 years as governor to get the federal government to help us, but what are you going to do? It's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles. But we really are proud with the people that are involved, because they are professionals. They understand that this is something that in Florida you just have to take seriously, and so they do that, I think, time and time again. So let's pray that we have an uneventful hurricane season, but let's also be prepared that if we do face storms, that we're going to be in a situation to respond. So I'm excited to get this money in the budget. I think it's going to be money well spent. And again, I want to thank the folks standing behind me for their service to our communities. And so we're going to hear from some other folks who are also involved in this. So Jimmy Petronas, the CFO.
Thanks, Governor.
Yep.
Good morning. Thank y'all for being here. Look, I got to brag about this guy for a second. Talking about leaning forward, never in the history of the state have we had a governor who has repeatedly pushed forward out $1,000 bonuses for our first responders. First time historic injection of funding from the state into our urban search and rescue teams. These are the same teams that deploy out to Louisiana, Texas, Panama City with Hurricane Michael. My first mission I ever went on was with Task Force 5. As they go and they leave their families, they deploy out, they sleep on parking lots, inside of grocery stores, going from door to door, checking on the households, on the welfare of the citizens that have been affected by the storm. And at the same time, at a moment's notice, they're deploying out to work on a 1-acre site at Surfside for 12 hours straight, for 7 days straight, working 24-hour shifts, doing everything they can. So I love that the governor recognizes their heroism, their leadership, and understanding that they need the resources and the tools to do their job. I got to brag a little bit on Kevin Guthrie, your hometown hero here. I've worked with 16 years in this process now. I don't know, Governor, if I've ever had a executive director of the Department of Emergency Management who has been as capable, thorough, and has just never stops working for the citizens of the state of Florida. And I'd like y'all to give Kevin a round of applause. The governor teed up the sales tax holiday that we're doing on home hardening. So that means windows, doors, garage doors. You'll be able, after July 1, you'll be able to make those purchases. The state's going to give you an incentive by giving you a sales tax back on that. Again, wouldn't have happened without his leadership and signature on the bottom of that budget to execute that. And then with the special session, the dollars that we're going to be making available to help give you resources as a match program with the state of Florida. Again, hardening that bubble, making your home tougher, ultimately is going to lower your insurance rate. So again, leadership from the governor is the only reason why any of this stuff happened, and really honored to be here with these great guys today. God bless y'all. Thank you for being here. Thanks, boss.
All right, Chief Keith Powers.
Thank you, Governor. How good is it to have a governor that supports first responders? You know, he's not only supporting them with a second year in a row now with those first responder bonuses, because these men and women, they sacrifice so much time away from their families to do the training that's required to be on this Florida task force. But it also, by doing that, it helps these men and women keep Floridians safe. And not only Floridians, but, you know, the governor and the Department of Emergency Management also have sent this task force over to Louisiana, so it's helping keep people safe in this country. And so, Governor, we really appreciate what you're doing and the funding that you're providing. This $10 million that's coming to USAR is desperately needed to keep these teams up to speed and where they need to be. And I can't say enough thanks to CFO Petronas for fighting for this. I know down at Surfside, you really made this one of your missions that you were going to help us get, and he's worked extremely hard, so thank you, sir, for that. And then my friend Kevin Guthrie, who's one of our hometown guys, he is constantly supporting the needs of this community and communities across the state. So Kevin, thank you for what you do. You know, the Florida Task Force 5 has 250 members locally that are in this task force, and they sacrifice a lot of time and a lot away from their families to make sure they're trained to the highest standards, so that when events like Surfside or events like what happened in Louisiana or Panama City, as CFO Petronas mentioned, happen, that we're ready to go. So this funding goes a long way. So again, I want to thank you all for what you're doing and helping support our first responders.
Absolutely. Thanks, buddy.
All right, Kevin Guthrie, Department of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Governor. And first, let me start with thanking you for your leadership on this important legislation and getting this $10 million for urban search and rescue teams. You know, we saw firsthand what they could do at Surfside back last year, and some of the challenges and issues we faced with the equipment there. And we certainly appreciate your leadership and CFO Petronas' leadership on getting this money through. The division relies heavily on these urban search and rescue teams across the state of Florida. They are an invaluable support asset to us. You know, we're not a state that owns a fire rescue service, so we have to partner with our local communities for this type of activity. So again, we're very, very appreciative of the 8 urban search and rescue teams across the state that help us out. This $10 million will help support training activities, as you heard the governor talk about. It'll also fund an annual full-scale exercise where we can bring all 8 teams together to make sure that we're ready to respond to any type of issue impacting our state. As we all know, the 2022 hurricane season started this last week, and we had an impact in South Florida from potential tropical cyclone number 1. We saw areas that were inundated with 10 to 15 inches of rain. Again, it is your urban search and rescue teams that are usually the first in to help out with that with our swift water rescue element that that most of these teams have. So again, another example where this money is going to be used and how it's going to impact the residents of Florida. The last thing that I'll talk about is, as the governor's already mentioned, we are in the middle of our disaster preparedness tax holiday. It does run through this Friday, so again, those items that you could get for your own preparedness kit, we want to make sure that you're doing that. make some conscientious decisions, as we know we have. I think the governor likes to refer to it as Bidenflation. As we have some of those issues coming up, we want to make sure that people are going to the grocery store, getting some type of kit material for their preparedness kit. Make some conscientious decisions, especially if you're impacted by inflation. Moving from fresh fruits, vegetables, meats to canned fruits, vegetables, and meats. Those are things that you could buy at the store this weekend that will help you be ready for a disaster and have 5 to 7 days worth of supplies. Again, Governor, CFO Petronas, especially Governor, appreciate your leadership on this. Thank you so much.
Yep. And for the disaster preparedness, we've seen different supply chain issues that have been chronic, it seems like. We're now seeing this massive problem with the baby formula over the last few months, and they shut down Abbott's plant. I don't even think Abbott did anything wrong, and they were really slow to bring that to a conclusion. Now I think the plant's going back, but it's been a total disaster with that. It's been very difficult for a lot of mothers to be able to get the infant formula that they need, and we've seen other things just be out over however many months. And so with some of the stuff you may need for a disaster preparedness, if we do have something bearing down and it gets really close and you wait, not only are you going to have to deal with the rush generally, but then you don't even know what some of this stuff will be in terms of these supply chain issues. Now, we're proud in Florida. We've helped to really push back on that by making sure that we were bringing more businesses to our ports, and we've done that. I mean, we were at Jacksport with one of the companies moving from Long Beach to the port of Jacksonville, and other ports around the state are up with cargo, and we're happy to do that. We're also working to expand truck drivers with more commercial driver's licenses, a whole bunch of stuff, and so we've been a positive force for it. But I mean, there's a lot of issues that are going on. So take advantage of the tax holiday, get some of the stuff that you need, and hopefully you won't need it. But if you do need it, just having what you need, I think is going to be the way to go. And then finally, just point out, we did do the budget last week, and our state has never been in stronger fiscal position. If you look at, we have a record surplus in the state of Florida. Just our rainy day fund was, I think it was about a $1.2 billion when I became governor. Now it's over $3 billion just for rainy day. We've got massive amounts of surplus general revenue. We have unallocated trust fund balances. And I think it's really important that we maintain that posture. So the budget that I got, we vetoed $3.1 billion out of the budget because I want to make sure that we're protected for the long haul. If you do have a recession, which could happen with what's going on in Washington, you want to be protected from that. You don't want to be in a situation where you're going to have to do dramatic reductions in public safety or education or all these things. And so we're prepared that even if you have a slowdown, I hope we don't have that, and I think Florida is much better prepared than we were 10, 15 years ago to deal with it. But from a fiscal perspective, we're not going to miss a beat because we've managed appropriately, we've been very prudent, and we're sitting on a lot of reserves that, yes, we can deploy if you have those situations. And so I think all in all, to be able to see that type of fiscal posture is something that people should be very proud of. I mean, we have one of the lowest tax burdens in the country per capita, but we also do really big things to support. I mean, we've never done more for education, biggest teacher compensation increase in the history of the state, massive support for conservation and Everglades restoration, doing things for public safety. Yes, 10 million, the bonuses, $5,000 recruitment for law enforcement, a whole things that no one thought were possible really just a few years ago. So we've been doing really, really big things. And of course, the biggest tax relief package we've ever had, $1.25 billion. So we're proud of all of that. And I think we're, as a state, very well positioned to deal with whatever may come down the pike for what's going on in D.C. I mean, I read this stuff, it's like, Biden is like, can't understand why people are dissatisfied. It's like you came in and waged war on American energy production. You'll take it from Maduro, but somehow you don't want it being done here. And so it's been very difficult. And of course you're going to see increases in gas prices. I think oil hit over 120 a barrel for the sweet crude, I think I saw. And so that is going high. You could very well end up with oil at $150+ a barrel. That translates into way over $5 a gallon. I think it's going to hit $5 a gallon very, very soon on this current trajectory. And just think, I mean, just a year and a half ago, we were about $2.20, $2.30, $2.40 for unleaded. And so this is a huge, huge burden on a lot of people. And it's not just what you're doing for transportation of your own vehicle. The energy costs go into everything from up and down the economy and the supply chain. It makes everything more expensive, and it increases pressure upward on prices. So it's very, very difficult. That's something we're having to contend with, of course, as Floridians. It's reflected in our budget as well. I mean, we had to put more money in to projects we thought were already fully funded from last year because of the inflation that we've seen. The costs are going up. You talk to anyone building anything, some of the costs are up dramatically from where they were just a year, year and a half ago. So we're, at the end of the day, prudence suggests be prepared, make sure that you can protect the folks and protect all our priorities. And I think we're very well positioned to do that. So I'm proud of the work we've done. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
The Sheriff Mike Williams is here. Can you comment on if you've made a decision to replace Williams and who your decision is?
Yeah, I figured somebody may ask about that since we were in Jacksonville. So one, I just want to thank Mike Williams for his service. He's had a great career in law enforcement. I think he's done a great job here in Northeast Florida, and I think he's been a good public servant. I think he's been somebody that I consider a friend. So I wish him fair winds and following seas as he I guess will be a Nassau County resident, and it just this is kind of the way. It's a beautiful place. I mean, so I can't blame, but so we thank him for his service. You know, I don't think this was an expected thing. I think it just kind of happened. But I've spoken with a lot of folks, both in the sheriff's office and outside, and I think the most prudent thing for us to do is, you know, I will be elevating the Undersheriff Pat Ivy to be the sheriff when Mike steps down on Friday. And, you know, we have an election going on. There's now going to be a special election. I think that that's something that a lot of people are involved in. You know, I will say, and so I think that's kind of separate. And then I think the important thing is just continuity to get us through the end of the year. And I think Pat is very, very highly regarded, recommended. I think he's going to be going to have respect from people from day one. And I think he'll be able to continue the work that the department's doing without having major interruptions. Now, you know, you do have now this special election, and where's he at? That's my man there. I'm supporting T.K. Waters for the next Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, Sheriff of JSO. I think he's got a tremendous background. I think he's been involved at various levels of law enforcement, and I think he would provide really excellent leadership for the people of Jacksonville. So that'll be determined, obviously, in August, November, and then beyond, and he's got my support there. But for this immediate appointment, Pat Ivy will get the nod on Friday.
Sir, do you think that the sheriff can't face any further consequences based on moving 2 years before the start of?
Look, I think he got advice that said that was okay, and then it came to a point where he probably wouldn't be successful. So I don't think there was any ill intent on his part.
Are you concerned that, you know, because the move happened a year ago, the actions he took throughout the past year could potentially now fall under question if he would?
I don't think so. I mean, that's just the way this thing came. You know, he was relying on certain advice. It seemed that then the bulk of the opinion was probably against him, so he recognized that and then just made a decision. And so I think it's fine. You know, again, it wasn't anything that I was expecting to have to make this appointment. You know, we were looking at this race, thinking it would happen next spring. And I was interested in helping out any way I could, but it hadn't necessarily been ripe up to that point. Now with this, you know, we're happy to put our endorsement in, and then also to make sure that the office has continuity going forward.
On disaster response, with hurricane season here now, you have supply chain issues, you have gas price issues, you apparently have a strained relationship with our federal government. You can maybe correct me on that. How would you say Florida is equipped to handle a bad storm?
Well, look, on the federal stuff, it is what it is. I mean, you know, we had tornadoes go through Southwest Florida. We applied for assistance for very elderly people on fixed income and got denied for that by the White House. There's been other things where, we're not usually on the first way. I mean, you saw some of the stuff that we've done with some of the federal programs. I mean, we all apply like within a couple weeks, and then California and New York are approved months before we are. That's just the reality. I think there's a lot of politics at play. I think that's unfortunate. That is not the way you do disaster response. I mean, you've got to put all that to the side, and you've got to be willing to step up. And so hopefully that will happen. I can tell you President Trump was very supportive when I flew up. I got elected. Show up to Tallahassee, January 2019. Everyone had forgotten about the Panhandle except the people there. I said this is a priority, and so we went up and met with President. He green-lighted a lot of additional assistance. It's really been instrumental, and there's still a lot that needs to be done there, but we've kind of stayed with that for the years I've been governor, and I can tell you there's a lot of great things going on in Northwest Florida now too. So that's just what you have to do. So hopefully that'll be the case, but I mean, proof will be in the pudding when that comes. I can tell you that it will definitely be a little bit more of a struggle in terms of that. Now, the fuel is going to, of course, be an issue for people because you have less supply overall, and so that's going to be very, very hazardous. I mean, I think the thing that you would do out of Washington is just say, okay, the energy policy we put in January of 2021 in the Biden administration was wrong. So just acknowledge that, reverse it, and really embrace a lot of American production. That would not necessarily change the supply dramatically overnight, but a lot of the fuel prices are forward-looking, and so if there was clear national commitment to utilizing domestic resources and understanding that, yes, it's painful at the pump for people, which is a huge issue. It's also a national security issue, the fact that we're not energy independent, and we were better than we ever had been just a year and a half ago. So I think that that's something that is going to continue to be an issue unless that they do that. Now, in the supply chain, what Kevin's been working with different folks in different aspects of this, you do have with the utilities. So the private utilities, they're good to go. They've got a lot of capacity to do what they need to do. Some of the smaller municipal-owned utilities, there could be issues where they just don't have the resources, to buy like a transformer or something and just have it sit there in case that there's a storm. And so Kevin's been working with them to have some support to try to help. But that could definitely be an issue if you get to a point where one of those gets knocked out by a storm. You want to then go buy another one, and it may not be just somewhere on the shelf where they're going to be able to get it. So that's something that I know Kevin and his team are looking at very closely.
Governor, transportation and recently gas prices seem a challenge to many citizens, including in emergencies. Is there any way without federal funding, Florida can improve its public transportation by buses and trains and even building subways in the cities without people having to rely so much on cars like they do in Europe or in Asia?
So, I mean, I think putting a subway system in cities in Florida is unlikely to happen. I think that would not necessarily be a prudent use of tax funds. I think the feasibility of that would probably be questionable as well. But I would say on infrastructure, we had the highest amount of money for the FDOT work plan that we've ever had in the history of the state. And part of the reason we've always funded it, we've done a good job, but the state is growing. And it's not just people moving here. I mean, we're the #1 destination for people to vacation, more so than even pre-COVID. If you look at some of the numbers, 2021, we set a big record for domestic tourism. First quarter of 2022, foreign visitors to the United States, Florida's share of that was 45%. No state has ever had that big of a share. So there's just a lot going on. There's a lot of folks, and that requires a commitment to continue to expand and improve infrastructure. So I think what we did with the $11.7 billion is going to be a big deal. And then I'm also looking at ways to say, okay, for proposals in the future, yes, we have this work plan. Yes, there's a lot of worthy projects, and we'll continue with that. But there's some areas where you could just get caught in traffic at any time of the day. So what can we do to alleviate some of the most pressing problems? Because the thing is it's not a good use of commuter time, but it also does impact the economy. I mean, if to get from like Disney World to Tampa on I-4, you're going to end up getting caught in standstill traffic. you know, that affects the ability to move goods, to be able to do a lot of other stuff. So I think it's really, really important, but I think ultimately those types of infrastructure projects would be probably more high value and be more of a force multiplier than trying to create like a subway system or something. That's just not been something that the state of Florida has done. So, okay guys, great to be here. I want to thank the USAR folks yet again for their hard work, and hopefully we don't see you this summer in any meaningful capacity, but I know they're here if we end up getting down that road. So God bless everybody. Where do I go? Okay. Just right here? Okay. Oh, sorry. No, that's fine. Yeah. Got it? Got it? All righty. Good deal. All right. Yes, sir. Where am I going, this way? Okay, thanks, buddy. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Fine assistant.
Not yet, buddy, not yet.